Right now, let's find out how to find a qualified landscape maintenance contractor. That's a real deal. You just never know when you're going to be running across somebody who knows what they're doing as opposed to not knowing what they're doing and the legal ramifications thereof. There's many states that do not have qualifications for contractors, but yet there's even more states that do require that you have a license to be a landscape maintenance contractor. So the first thing that we have to look at is that of a license. Yeah, ask them if they have a license. Now, in many states, it's required for their license to be actually displayed on their vehicles. And it's usually their work vehicles, not the vehicles that they come down to your house and give you an estimate or anything like that. It has to be on their vehicles while they're working. And then you want to verify the state contractor's license number. You go down to your state. You just do it online, and you go to your main landscaping board or contractor's board, and then you find the contractor listed there to make sure that the license is up to date. I'll give you a good example of that. Just today, I received an email from somebody that said that they were looking up a particular contractor for something that this group that I'm involved with that wanted to get this guy involved. Come to find out that 2 years ago, his license was given up. He's not actually doing the work any longer. So needless to say, he's not going to be getting the work from us any longer. I think they got retired. And that's good to know too. Whether somebody has retired or if somebody else has taken that license and done something with it. And I'll give you a good example about that. My father was not only a landscape contractor, but a general contractor, electric contractor, plumbing contractor, contractor, all over the place. He ended up getting a telephone call from somebody saying, hey, you took a bunch of money from me and you never started the work. Well, come to find out, there is a guy that we knew. I don't want to call him a family friend, but we knew him. We knew his parents and such. He swiped my dad's contractor's license and was working underneath that and was taking people's money and not even starting the jobs. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. Anyway, the bottom line is make sure that they are verified with the state that you're working in and check their licensing on their website. The other thing is that you also have to confirm, and you need to get this regardless, you need to confirm that they have a general liability insurance and workers' comp. And if they have that coverage, it's not going to be a big deal because you can ask for a certificate of insurance naming you as additional insured. It's a simple telephone call that they have to do. All they need to do is call their insurance company and say, look, I'm doing work for Nick Federoff, and I need to add him as additionally insured. Here's the address that we're going to be working at, and it's free. It doesn't cost. I don't think insurance is and all that cost. Anytime when I was in this business, we never had to pay for any of our certificates of insurance. All we needed to do was to make sure that they were on the paperwork, and that's the important part. All right, the second thing that you want to do is you want to check for certifications and industry affiliations. So important. You want somebody who's in the industry. It's just that simple. Find out, see if they have credentials like a certified landscape technician or a nursery trade landscape association membership. Maybe they're involved with the International Society of Arboriculture. You don't know. Ask them. Just ask them. And if not, do a search on them. That kind of information is all over the place, right? And then ask if the crew leaders have a pesticide or herbicide applicator license for chemical treatments if they're necessary. That's really important as well. So when we had our landscape business, I had the license. I was what they call a qualified applicator, and I could have people working underneath me. I was able to work with all kinds of different types of chemicals and such. And it's really important to have that because you end up becoming licensed and bonded in that particular category, and you could do the work. And if anything ever happens, then it could. and then you're covered, and they're covered, and everybody's covered. And you've got people that are working for you that can take and actually put this stuff down for you and not have to worry about it. It's really just that simple. So, membership in a professional association also signals that they're getting additional training. Like, for instance, when I had my license, I would go for my, I would go to trade shows, and I would go to different talks, and you have to get all these different credits so that and you build them up over a period of 2 years. I forget how many credits they had to give. And the other thing is this was actually kind of cool. Because of who I am, I was able to teach classes and get credits as well. It was a really cool thing that I had going on. But still, I sat in a lot of classes where you had a bunch of professors and these different Poindexter dudes that were just giving the most boring information. But if you're able to glean stuff in there so that your business would in turn become better because of it, or there's new stuff, yeah. So find out if they are and they have a membership with some type of professional organization. In fact, it's even true for irrigators. Irrigation techs, there was a company called Irrigator Tech, and they have just sold their business, and a newer company, bigger company, absorbed them. And what they do is that they go down to these different wholesale stores, places where most people can't buy the stuff. They just want contractors to come through. They sign them up, and they get continuing education and recertification for all kinds of neat things. So it's really important. Now, here's the thing that really kind of gets my goat that you have to be careful of, and that is get multiple written estimates. Now, it's cute to think that you're going to get 7, 8, 9, 10 estimates. Don't do that. Don't waste all those people's times. What you want to do is be sure of yourself. Have an idea of what you want. So what people do is that they'll hire me. I come out and I'll find out what they want. And then I could tell them what they need. Then they can take that information and they can find their own landscapers, and they can get 3 quotes, because it's really important to make sure that your bid covers the same scope of work. Apples to apples, oranges to oranges, strawberries to strawberries, kiwis to kiwis, whatever kind of fruit that you want. Make sure the things that they're talking about in proposal 1 is the same as number 2, and the same is number 3. And the thing you have to really be aware of is that you don't always take the lowest bid, and you have to really be wary of the bid that's dramatically lower than others. And I always like to refer to a city that I went to, and because I used to have city contracts. So I used to go to these city contracts, and I put in a bid. I think it was like for $55,000 a month. Another guy came in, and they put a bid in for, I think it was like $18,000 a month. How in the world they were going to do that is beyond me, unless they were doing something that just wasn't cool and something that wasn't kosher. I don't understand that. Well, needless to say, that company got booted out, and they brought in the next lowest bid. That's how city work. They always take the lowest bid. But when we were doing contracting work, it wasn't always necessarily about the lowest bid. It was always about what does the bid entail, and all the other things that are involved in securing that contractor, okay? And I recognize we're only talking about landscape maintenance here. We're talking about cutting the lawns. You may call them gardeners, but you want a licensed landscape maintenance contractor. Let's now talk about how to ask about the scope of services when you're hiring a landscape maintenance contractor. And that's really important to kind of keep that in mind, that we're talking about a landscape maintenance contract over here. The thing that we have to do is to clarify what's included in the services. Now, if you remember it, I talked about apples to apples, oranges to oranges, kiwis to kiwis, radishes to radishes, well, whatever it is. Clarify what's included. Mowing, edging, pruning, fertilizing, irrigation checks, all that stuff. What happens when they decapitate a sprinkler head? Who fixes that? There's all kinds of stuff. I got all kinds of signs from the peanut gallery over there. People are applauding on that one. Okay, so all of these things have to be lined up and discussed and written down. So even if they're not going to use they're going to have their own forms. And hopefully they're not just going to come over there and say, oh yeah, well, I'll do it for this much and that. No, get it in writing. And then ask what's billed separately. Is mulching billed separately? Is seasonal cleanups? Are planting flowers? Is this all extra stuff? So I do a lot of landscape consultations for some high profile people. And one of the things that we do is that I make sure that the landscape contractor has a base of what they're doing. Again, the mowing, edging, pruning, fertilizing, all right, irrigation checks. But when it comes to things like trimming the trees, the landscape contractor is responsible for trimming the trees that are, 5 feet and down, actually 6 feet and down. But anything over 6 feet, we hire an arborist to do the extra work. So that's really important. Find out, and this is so important, find out how they handle the debris removal and disposal. When I was in the business, we hauled everything away. Of course, back then, there wasn't a whole lot of these green trash cans and the recyclable trash cans and these big old bins. There was just the regular trash cans. Today, everybody's going that other way where they're having the big old bins and everything is color-coded and all that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to make sure where it's going. And I'll give you a good example of this, okay? So I have a guy that helps me out doing my lawn. Yes, believe it or not, I have a landscaper. And when I get along with my next door neighbor and her lawn area is so much bigger than mine, it's ridiculous. So every so often, especially during the growing season, he fills up her trash cans way too fast. So I say, oh, you can fill mine up because I don't have as much debris. Plus, I'm also recycling and I'm also composting. So, it's a give and take kind of thing, but find out how they handle the debris. The next thing you want to do is request references. Now, the guy that was working next door, that's actually the guy that I called. He was doing the work over there for the last 5 or 6 years. My guy, personal friend of mine, he took ill and wasn't able to do it any longer. So I just went and asked, he was always did really good work. That's how I ended up with them. Anyway, so ask for your references. Ask for 2, no more than 3. Don't go giving a big old list or anything like that. And you want to ask for a reference for a property that's about the same size as yours. Okay, so like with my next door neighbor, our front yards are identical as far as size is concerned. It's just that mine looks a whole lot better. It's much more stylistic than hers. Hers is nice, but it's just different landscapes. But our backyards are tremendously different, absolutely different. So anyway, drive by an active job site, ask where they're going to be around, check online reviews, do that kind of stuff. It's so important. And then understand that there's a pricing structure. The pricing structure is anywhere from a flat monthly rate to per visit pricing versus a seasonal contract. And ask what triggers extra charges. Like if there's a storm, do you have to clean it up? Not long ago, did you hear about that? There was that freak storm that went through Boise, Idaho. Wiped out all kinds of plants, wiped out all kinds of landscapes, it was crazy. Within 24 hours, they had so much water dumped on them, it was ridiculous. Yards were devastated. So, is that part of the regular deal? Or is there a fee that is charged for all that? Get everything in writing, get a start date, get an end date, really makes important. Now, here's the embarrassing part that is on their part, but it's also important. you have to be very observant. Ask about their equipment and crew. Ask if they have commercial grade equipment, because it tends to work a whole lot faster. It's more consistent work. Ask about the size of the crew. Are the same people going to be coming on board? How long has the crew worked together? Find out if the same crew visits or whether they rotate, because you may have new people there all the time. Or do they happen to have one particular supervisor, and that supervisor is the one who manages all the crews? Everybody's different. But knowing who's on your property is really important, and whether or not you have to give them a key to your backyard, or whether you have to leave it open. What do you do with the dog? Do you clean up after before they get there, or do they clean up? And if they clean up, I'm telling you right now, you better pay a whole lot more than what you're paying, period. Do not leave any lawn sausage around, because that is just mean and cruel for a landscaper. Keep your property clean unless it's in the contract to clean it up. And there are companies who actually do that. They're designed, they just come through your yard and they clean up the mess 2-3 times a week. Really, really important. And then finally, you want to discuss communication and problem resolution. Things are going to come up. How do they handle complaints? Or maybe they're missed visits. Is there a single point of contact? Do you call a dispatcher? Do you call them? And ask what happens with weather delays. Now, the way that I do it, whether it rains or not, I still pay the guy. It's just that simple. My people have always gotten paid. When I was in the business, we always charged whether we were there or not, so it's only fair now that the same exact thing happens. So it's super, super important to understand all this kind of stuff and to really get to know your landscaper very well, because they're going to be on your property. You're going to have to talk to them. You're going to have to communicate with them, find out who to communicate with. And whatever you do, if a crew member says they'll do something for you on the side, don't do that. Don't do it at all. You're working with the landscaper. You're working with a licensed landscape contractor. Don't make a side deal with anybody. It's not fair for the contractor, and it's not fair for the person doing the work. It's not going to be fair for you when they get hurt. It's pretty much just that simple.